positively anticipating, and the more that you are hanging out in the vibration of well-being as you are thinking about food, then the more accurate your indicators will be when you are trying to decide whether or not you should participate in something. So at the counter last night, as they check in, the lovely girl gives them hot cookies in a bag. Esther could hardly wait to get her hands on her hot cookie. Now, she knows from former thoughts and from past experience. In other words, she wants to call the cookie decadent. She wants to call the cookie bad. She wants to call the cookie all kinds of things that she's learned from her past. But she felt a true eagerness for that cookie, a true eagerness for the cookie. So what does that mean? Does that mean that the pleasure of the cookie and Esther's alignment were in place? Or does it mean the pleasure outweighed her believing of value? What does it mean? And we say, when you come into alignment with who you are, you don't have to take one or the other. There can be value in the pleasure. And that's the thing that we want you to understand. The cells of your body, the chemical factory that is you, knows how to extract the value from everything. And your inner being knows, believe it or not, and most humans have a hard time accepting this, your inner being knows that there is value for you in pleasure. How can you not know that? There is value for you in pleasure. In other words, you keep wanting to turn your boat upstream, and you keep wanting the struggle to be the place from where your well-being comes. And so you get yourself in attitudes of deprivation or in attitudes of not allowing. And we want you to understand that there is a fabulous marriage between value and pleasure. And when you finally get it, when you're reaching for those goosebumps, when you are following the path of enthusiasm, and so quite often you'll feel enthusiasm for a cookie, and halfway into the first bite, the enthusiasm is replaced with guilt. Don't eat the cookie when you feel guilty. Not because the cookie has changed, but because your vibration has changed. You get a sense of what we're talking about? So what is our message here? Get happy about the cookie. Get happy about the cookie or do not eat it. Get happy about the salad or do not eat it. Someone says, Abraham, is there really a monster in the bushes, or do I just think there's a monster in the bushes? I'm feeling apprehension. Is there a monster in the bushes? And we say, in any case, get off the bench. Because whether there's a monster in the bushes or whether you just think there's a monster in the bushes, you got fear going on that is detrimental to your being. And when you do something about it, and so this is where that action comes in. So you get up and you move yourself away from where you think the monster is. And we say, that's got to be better than sitting there in fear that there's a monster there. But eventually we want it to be about alignment, not about running from the monster. Eventually, we want you to be so tuned in, tapped and turned on that when you're sitting on the bench, you know that well-being is yours. You can be on a bench surrounded by monsters, and the monster will not negatively affect you if your vibration's in the right place. Do you know that? The monster is not in charge of your life. Your attention to the monster and its effect upon your vibration is what is in charge of your life. This is deep stuff. Are you getting it? So, is the cookie a monster or not? Well, you decide. You decide. Make peace with it and let the cells of your body extract the benefit from it, and no longer say there is valuable food and there is desirable food, but they are not the same, because they can be the same. Yes.
I thank you so much.
Yes.
That helps tremendously.
So now we stir more up. Yes, come forward. The questions should be coming fewer, but they are not. Have you noticed?
Hello. I'm a little surprised. This is the second year I've been here, and I had some thoughts, but never clarity. And we've been talking a lot about belief systems, and I've been playing a lot with them in my mind, and kind of coming up with the conclusions that you're presenting today. So thank you for answering so many of the questions.
This meeting gathers before you drag your bodies here. Well, doesn't that follow when we talk about how you live life and you launch into your vibrational escrow? Isn't that logical? And so then in an environment like this, as your expectation increases, then so much that you've been asking for will culminate here. Yes.
Yes. I have kind of a way off question that's really the one that's seeming the strongest at the moment. And that is there a way that you can, or not that, is there a way, would you please coach me in how to fly without any apparatus?
Well, the easiest way to approach that, we must have this in the wrong place. We keep spitting into it. Better? The easiest way is by first acknowledging that you are a vibrational being more than you are the flesh, blood, and bone being. And that vibration travels about easily where the flesh, blood, and bone is affected by gravity. And that you are far more vibrational than you are physical. And that by aligning with that broader perspective, that you can soar, and that you can translate that flying into something that is so visceral and so physical that it will not be as if you are dreaming it. You will actually be flying and interpreting it back into your physical senses. That really is what an out-of-body experience is. It is achieving vibrational alignment from my physical form with the energy of my source, so that I, in combination with the view of source, am living this experience. When you dream, you literally withdraw when you sleep, you literally withdraw your attention from this and you reemerge into non-physical. And the dreams that you think you're dreaming all night long happen in a flash as you are re-entering consciousness. And it is your interpretation of such. In other words, your dreams are your creation also. So when you realize that whether you are dreaming or whether you're walking around in this physical body or whether you're having an out-of-body experience, it is all you that is creating it. So you can create anything that you want. Then acknowledge that this flight that you want is about alignment with the part of you that flies easily. Esther has discovered that her out-of-body experiences, where she flies around on the golf course, or she flies around on the ocean water, or she flies around the bedroom, at the heart of every one of those is a full acknowledgement of her in-the-moment well-being. In other words, a little bit of insecurity will keep you from flying. A little bit. Esther's first steady night flights took place once they moved to a golf course where she could slip out of the window without bothering anyone and fly around without running into anything, and stay close enough to Jerry, who she knew was going to be sleeping in the bed, that she didn't feel insecure. In other words, now we're not telling you that any of those worries are valid, but we will tell you that the absence of them allowed her to fly. So what you have to do is acknowledge that it's easy to fly as the non-physical energy that is you, and that what you're really reaching for is an accurate and vivid, detailed interpretation of the flight. Now, as we give this to you, we're telling you how it really is. And most people, because you're so enamored with the physicality of your life, you think this stuff is real. You do. You think all of this stuff is real because when you knock on it, it makes a noise, and because you are in agreement on what you see. But we want to say to you that everything that is of a physical nature is just your agreement on your interpretation of these vibrations. So if you will relax in your description of what's reality and what's non-physical, and if you will relax in the distinction between the physical you and the non-physical you, and start acknowledging that you are predominantly non-physical, and that your physical being has the ability to interpret that back into physicalness, you can have all kinds of remarkable other dimensional experiences. There are no limitations other than those you place. As Esther was beginning to understand the idea of thought and thought form, she was questioning and thinking about it one night as she went to sleep. And as she was just before she was drifting off to sleep, she sat up in bed because she could hear, it sounded like a crowd of people walking up the driveway. And she looked over at Jerry, wanting to know if he could hear it, and he could not hear it. He was deep in sleep. And then Esther looked over, and she looked out of a window that is not there in her reality as she knows it. But it was a clear, vivid window, and she looked out into the moonlight, and she saw Tin Man, Scarecrow, Dorothy, Lion, coming up the driveway. Now, Esther has always loved all of them and feels that she knows them from the depiction that has been offered about them, the fictional depiction. But now she is having an experience with them. How can this be? She is thinking. I know they are fiction. And we said, and yet they are thought form. They are really no more fictional than you, because you are only thought form that has been thought upon long enough that now you're in agreement. So she walked through the window and into the driveway and spent what felt to her like many hours conversing, getting to know them, singing. She knows all of their songs. Now, most people in hearing something like that would say, no, Abraham, you misunderstand. This is not the flying I want to do. This is not the out of body. I want something real. And we say, you've got to blur the lines between what you consider to be real and what you consider to be vibrational. You've got to accept that you are vibrational beings and that you are vast in your ability to focus before you can start having those experiences that are a departure from the reality that you have been embracing. In other words, you have to start really leaning toward your acknowledgement of who you really are. And we're not really big on you going too far there because you have such reason for being here. If you knew how much you wanted to be in these bodies, you would not be trying so hard to get out of them. In other words, there's power and reason for being focused here. And so usually your out-of-body experiences are a very small part of your experience. In other words, because your inner being is not really going to be a big advocate of you spending a lot of time out of your body. But it is very helpful to have that broader vantage point in order to get a greater look at the total you see. So we would begin by saying things like, I like the idea of seeing the total me, and I really want to begin to interpret through my physical human form that broader advantage. I want to eat my salads with my inner being present, and I want to fly around the planet with my inner being present. I want to get a sense of what's going on in my world from that broader perspective. I want to view this world through the eyes of Source. That's the best way to get those flights going. I want to see the world through the eyes of Source. But you got to line up with the way Source sees the world. You can't be condemning what half of the world is doing and see the world through the eyes of Source. You've got to be in love with this world and in love with the people of the world and in love with you. In other words, to be a vibrational match to Source takes some deliberate thinking. And the more you do it, the more you soar.